Today we're going to be looking at one of the great rock and roll records, and it's also a bit of a rockabilly track. I think this one, it's certainly been widely covered by rockabilly artists, and in its energy and attitude it seems to me to prefigure punk music as well. And I actually found a quote from Jimmy Page himself, who described this as one of the great rock songs of all time. And it's one of those songs where I think the cover versions are probably better known than the original. And I know that I certainly first came across this track as the second song on The Clash's London Calling, and it was only quite a bit later that I managed to listen to the Vince Taylor version. But in this video I am going to be focusing on that original recording, and we've got a great, quite easy to play riff, and we've got a fantastic solo which contains loads of juicy rock and roll and rockabilly language. So let me start by playing a bit of that for you. Let me give you a bit of background on this track. Written and recorded in 1959 by Vince Taylor and his Playboys, and it wasn't a success at the time, but the song managed to live on in these various cover versions. And I've already mentioned The Clash recorded this track. There were a couple of quite big hits in Europe in the 60s, I think, and Brian Setzer also does a very nice version of this. Even The Fall have done a cover version of this track, which I found quite surprising, but in a way that makes sense, I think. Now, things didn't go too well for Vince Taylor, and he went off the rails in various different ways and ended up retiring from music. And now I think he's best known as providing Bowie with the inspiration for the Ziggy Stardust character. Guitar on this track played by the great Joe Moretti, and he is one of the great British session guitar players. And I've already discussed his work a little bit. I've done a video on Shakin' All Over by Johnny Kidd and the Pirates, which he played on. And he's played on loads of great records, including It's Not Unusual by Tom Jones. So maybe there's a future video there for me to make. That would be fun, I think. Anyway, let's get to it and let's take a look at what's going on in this song. I think the Clash do this in the key of E, but the original is in the key of C. And it's a 12-bar blues in C, that's the basic form. Now, the main riff is fairly straightforward to play, but you've got a number of options where you decide to play it on the fretboard. So the notes are these. We've got a C, E flat, F, F sharp, back to F. So it's like the first few notes of a C blues scale, and you're double picking most of those notes. I'm playing with all down strokes here. You could play that with alternate picking, but it doesn't quite have the same feel, so I prefer the sound of it with all down strokes. Now, as I say, you can play this in a number of different ways. I decided to play it in and around the 6th position. That's what it sounds like to me on the original recording, but I can't be certain of that. So I'm playing at the 8th fret on the low E string. That's my starting point. That's where it feels best to me. Another good option would be to play it like this. And then it's like you're playing out of that familiar C minor pentatonic C blues scale shape. So either of those two options I think are good ones. So that's our riff for C for the 1 chord. And then we head to the 4 chord, which is F, and we're just going to move that riff over to the next set of strings. And then back to C. And then we're heading to the 5 chord, and we've got this. So we're using these 9th chord grips. So we've got a G9, so starting on the A string we've got frets 10, 9, 10, 10, 10. And then we're just walking down to the 4 chord, which is an F9. And there's the stop, and we're back to the main riff. And then to turn it around, just a 5 chord at the end of the 12 bar, I'm just playing this G note down here at the 3rd fret on the low E string. That's our verse. Let me put all of that together for you. Let's check out this great solo then, and it's mostly played in double stops on the high E and B strings, and it starts with this great little lick. So we've got this 2-note shape here. It's 16 on the B and 15 on the high E, and you could think of that as coming out of the C minor pentatonic scale. Just playing that multiple times, and then adding in this note here, which is the 17th fret on the high E string, so it's an A note. And just going back and forth between the A and the G. And the next phrase is kind of an answering phrase to that. So again, it's kind of a melody played on the high E string whilst we're just letting that D sharp note drone away. So we've got, and then this. Just sliding into that first shape from time to time as well. So all of that played over the 1 chord, over the C chord. Then we're changing to the 4 chord, which is F, and we've got this. Joe Moretti's following the chord shapes here. He might be thinking out of this F bar chord shape at the 13th fret. And we've got this double stop here at the 13th fret on the top 2 strings. And then this little melody, so it's F, F, G, F, G sharp, G, F, and C. But it's not played as cleanly as that. Sometimes you're getting this C note come through as well, so you don't need to be too precious about it. It's okay to be a little bit messy here, but some of the notes are single notes, some of them are going to be double stops. So then we're heading back to the 1 chord, and we're playing that same lick, but down here at the 8th fret. So now thinking out of a C chord shape, but it's the same lick. And heading to the 5 chord with this. So more double stops. We're at the 15th fret on the top 2 strings, so thinking a G chord here. Walking down to the 13th fret. Then I'm hearing this, so we're coming right down to the 1st position and thinking about an F chord here. I'm just hearing the top part of an F chord, so kind of an F triad. And then the solo wraps up with this. Now this is the same little lick that you hear in the Clash version as well. We've just got a G and a D sharp. In fact, it's the same 2 notes that we started off the solo with, an octave higher, but now we're playing down this end of the neck. And you can just give that D sharp a little bit of a bend as well. And one thing I can detect on that last bit is maybe a little bit of whammy bar action, maybe a Bigsby or something. So I obviously can't do that on a Telecaster, but on this, on that chord there, you can give it a little bit of a wobble if you like. Okay, let me try putting all of that together. And that's pretty much it. All of the other verses are played in the same way. The second solo is just about identical to the first solo, but just a couple of other little details that it might be worth talking about. At the very top of the song, there's this kind of weird little noodle you can hear. Which is quite cool, and that's just an E flat with an open high E, quite a dissonant sound. And then it's going up to an F on the B string. And then going back again. And then just the ending chord is pretty cool too. So this kind of sound, I think it's a kind of C minor 13 kind of a sound. So really just hearing these notes. So the 8th fret on the G and then the 10th fret on the B and high E. Almost like the James Bond chord actually, that one. What gear am I using today, I hear you ask, and I thought I'd just keep it simple today, and I've no idea what Joe Moretti is using on the original recording, but for me, I'm liking the sound of my Telecaster straight into a Fender Deluxe. I think as far as guitar and amp combos go, I think it's hard to beat a Tele into a Deluxe, and all of the overdrive today is coming from the amp, and the wonderful thing about a Fender Deluxe is as soon as you get beyond about 4, then it starts breaking up in a really natural way. So today, I've got it on 4.5 just about, and you've got this really nice such a great sound. And I almost went down the no pedals at all route today, but I couldn't resist just using a little bit of rockabilly slapback. And this is not something that I can hear on the original recording, but why not? It's such a great sound. So for that, I'm using my Bell Epoch Deluxe pedal, and that's just giving me a little bit of a slapback. That's it for this video. Hope you enjoy learning this track. Tab, backing track, Patreon page. You know how that works by now. You can pay what you like. Thanks very much for watching. I shall see you next time.